Let's get this down in my stratosphere. Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you, Matt and Sages, for the opportunity to tell you that the sun has not yet gone down on open inguinal hernia repair. Now, my disclosure is that, yes, I am a MIS surgeon. For my 7 seconds of disclosure, please enjoy the Bromo Seltzer Tower, one of my favorite landmarks of Charm City. It's right outside. Who else would build an Italianate Renaissance tower with Bromo Seltzer on the clock face? But Baltimore. So we're very quickly going to go over the rationale, the numbers, the options, and the situations where open inguinal hernia repair is still a very viable player in the hernia repair arena. Maybe? Okay. So, yes, this meeting is about minimally invasive surgery. However, if we go back and look at some of the numbers and demographics, in this study by Retkow from 2003, you can see that there were almost 750,000 inguinal hernia repairs in 2003. And those are big numbers. And kind of drilling down on inguinal repairs, Mayo did a study in 2012 where they looked at the epidemiology of their county, Olmsted County, and they were able to get almost 97% of the population in this database. So when they looked at this almost 20-year period, they found almost 4,500 inguinal hernia repairs in almost 3,500 individuals. And in this study, it's fascinating. You can see the trends of repairs. So at the beginning, the most common repair by far is an open tissue repair. And then as we see mesh become more and more popular in the 90s, peaking at about 70% around the year 2000, and we see TAP get introduced in 1992 and TEP in 1995. So in 2008, 41% of the repairs were laparoscopic, but over half were still being performed open. And for non-mesh repairs, 94% of those repairs were an open tissue repair in 98, and that fell to 4% by 2008, which is fascinating. So if we look at the mesh or the open repairs being done, we can see that for the most part, it is a Lichtenstein or a plug and patch going back and forth between most popular with a low open tissue repair. The same group then looked at their own data from Mayo, along with NISQIP and the Premier database for a 5-year period between 2010 and 2015. And what's fascinating about this data is that still well within the laparoscopic era, 2/3 to 3/4 of all inguinal hernia repairs were still being performed open. And in another study from Montreal, they looked at their population-based database and found that from a period of time, 4 years from 2007 to 2011, 92% of the operations were being performed open, and most of the open repairs were cohorted. Another study in Europe showed that 3/4 of the repairs were still being done open in 2014. And in this JAMA study, a JAMA surgery study from 2015, which is a retrospective review of some of the national discharge survey data, it's kind of funny how they looked at it. They looked at emergent surgery in terms of number per 100,000 person years, but we can definitely track what's happening. So an estimated 2.3 million emergency abdominal repairs were performed. Abdominal hernia repairs were performed in that 9-year period, and about 500,000 were emergent. And when we break down the data, you can see that the blue line is inguinals, so that's still a decent number of people. And when you look at the data, who is getting emergent inguinal hernia repairs, the majority are people over 65. So those are going to be your older and sicker patients in the population. Very recently, in 2019, this year, when we look at a retrospective study from the Michigan Quality Collaborative, we can see that in Michigan, and in this study, they had about 90% of the eligible hospitals participated, a total of 72 hospitals. Over this 4-year period, they found that, again, 3/4 of the repairs were being performed open. And that's not very long ago. That's essentially now. And in this cohort, there were certain indications that led to a higher penetrance of minimally invasive repair, but it was still quite high. And 75% of those repairs were performed by only 14% of the surgeons. So we still have not seen widespread penetrance of laparoscopic inguinal hernia repairs into the general community. If you have not looked at the Hernia Surge Group and international guidelines for groin hernia management, this is a group of surgeons from all over the world that came together to look at the data and recommendations for inguinal hernia repair. And their opening statement is that the best operative technique should have low risk of complications, be easy to learn, have a fast recovery, and be reproducible and cost effective. And you're going to look at factors like the characteristics of the hernia, what kind of anesthesia you're going to use, the surgeon's preference, their training, their capabilities, and the logistics, what the patient wants, and maybe even emotion. So they have very specific data-driven recommendations. They ask a question, they gather the data, and then they give recommendations, and they say if it's strong or weak. And you can see the more boxes here, the better the data and more supportive it is. So when they looked at recurrence, pain, learning curve, post-op recovery, and cost, is there a preferred technique for inguinal hernia repair? Open, and in open they mean Lichtenstein, or one of the two MIS laparoscopic repairs. Really, they found it came up about even. So as long as the surgeon has sufficient experience, then an MIS technique doesn't take longer than open, and there's no complication difference with the appropriate experience in going up the learning curve. They did think there might be some data supporting less chronic pain with Lichtenstein, but that the direct costs for MIS are higher, and that decreases when the total cost is kind of taken into account and there's experience. The outcome measures don't seem different between the groups in terms of morbidity, mortality, and recurrence. So outcomes are similar with the same levels of surgeon experience. Laparoscopic might have some possible visualization preferences, but especially in lower resource settings, the open technique might be a better option. And they really had no recommendation as to whether a preperitoneal mesh or an open, laparoscopic or open is better. There's a steep learning curve, so you have to get through that if you're going to do MIS. And they came down to, for a male with a primary unilateral, you probably want to do an MIS, but that there are definite reasons to do it open as well. In recurrent hernias, this was their one strong recommendation to do a laparoscopic repair, which makes sense, the same incisions. But they also decided that you need to have the resources and the experience. And in patients with pelvic pathology, scarring, or radiation, you might want to do an open or anterior repair. It's recommended that, again, the expertise is important. And since a generally accepted technique for all inguinal hernias does not exist, it's recommended that surgeons provide both an anterior and a posterior option. So you really should have both tools in your toolbox. For recurrence, that came out weird, they said that if you had an open repair first, then you might want to do the second repair lap, but if you had a lap repair first, then it's recommended to go open. So for a recurrence after a TEP or TAP, they do recommend an anterior repair. For acutely strangulated or incarcerated hernias, they advocated a tailored approach. They kind of hedged, but this is one situation where most surgeons might be more comfortable in an open setting. There are rare complications from an open approach, and again, people with lower abdominal surgery have an increased risk of visceral damage with an MIS approach. Low resource settings, where you might have decreased facilities, decreased finances, are another area where an open approach is good. And so their consensus was that in a male patient with a large scrotal or irreducible hernia, you might want to do an open repair or a TAP. You'd probably want to do open on this guy, I would think, so there's definitely still rules for open. And these are the characteristics to take into consideration when you decide between open or lap. On this chart, you can see all of the options, and the ones I've highlighted in green are all of the open options, and you can see that there's a lot more. So if you need to do local or regional anesthesia, if your patient doesn't tolerate MIS, then you need to go open. Just to remind you of what the repairs are, the Lichtenstein, where the mesh onlay is placed. For a posterior transversalis repair, we have multiple options, including the giant repair, the Bassini, the Cooper's ligament for a femoral hernia, and the Schuldeis are the most common tissue repairs, and then there's the posterior approach as well. So for my final conclusion here, you can see that all of these purple highlights are where an open repair is still appropriate and sometimes preferred. And you need to take all of these considerations into account. So my conclusion is open inguinal hernia repair is still alive and well, even though MIS is something maybe all of us sitting here like to do. Thank you.